The update is finished. An army has been born. This was our happy ending. There was a smiley face drawn in the condensation of the door across me. I watched its creation. The artist started with the eyes with slow movements, dragging their index across the glass window. Then they added a nose, some strange eyebrows, and finally, a curvy smile. For a while it stayed, glimmering in condensation, and I watched it. I thought about drawing my own, a little friend for the smiley, but then the artist removed the eyes. They did so slowly, swiping away tiny smudges of the eye first, like they were picking it apart. I wondered if Smiley's had emotions, if it was screaming every time more parts were swiped away, its existence bleeding away piece by piece, smudge by smudge. They did the same with the other eye, and then redrew it. There are 5 Smileys in total now, and for each one, I've imagined haunting cries, screams of agony, tiny voices begging for death. I wandered over to my door several times and pressed my face against the glass so I could see it up close. So their screams sounded closer, like they were in my head, echoing in my skull, begging me as they were wiped away. Please help me. I like to think they sounded like mice, like little lab rats. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Little rats. Cute little rats. I'm naming the one on the far side Connor. He's screaming for his death. Do it. I dare you. Cut me open, Murra. Wipe me away. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. The artist isn't stopping, isn't faltering. They keep going, their finger a paintbrush, the glass, the canvas, and I keep watching. The next 2 posts will be my last. I'll be posting one today, one tomorrow. Blackwood Academy fell 26 hours ago. I like to say our story has a happy ending, and it does, in a way. I guess it's just a matter of perspective. I cut it. Those were the only words which made sense in my head, full of hurricane thoughts. A static screech bleeding into my skull and spiderwebbing into my being as the full throttle of the virus began to take effect on my surroundings. And then me. I could feel it. I could feel exactly what 100% felt like. What it felt like running through me, igniting in my nerve endings and setting my brain and thoughts alight. The update had reached 100%. I was drowning in them. My mind was no longer my own. I could hear them, faint, getting progressively louder. The shattered bulbs above me flickered on and off, bathing me in light, and then plunging me back into the dark. I enjoyed the thought of that. The we as one could play with the lights. I'd already seen it, or at least the beginning. And the first update started. Now I was seeing our full potential. I felt everything. All of them. All they had been and who were supposed to be. Their screams and laughter. Phantom crying. Petty shit like boyfriend drama and then family drama. Money and sex and pleasure and pain. And anger and sadness. Tragedy and happiness. Every time they laughed until their chest ached or cried into their pillow, every time they thought about taking their own life, and remember there was still so much more to live for. Not just thoughts, emotions, I was feeling them all at once, their emotions, their hopes and dreams, memories intoxicated by the virus and twisting it into pure hopelessness. In the back of my mind, I knew what was happening, why my brain was being overloaded. I knew what the final update was, but I couldn't think about that, not at that moment, because the tendrils and vines which had previously held Jasper in an iron grip had ultimately let go. I could see the back of his head, the entry points glistening scarlet where I sliced through his skull. 100% had hit. The Sioux virus plan had finally slipped into place, and I wasn't thinking about the parasite bleeding its way back into my own head, squirming back into place. I was thinking about Jasper. Jasper, who had murdered Luna under his father's influence, was the sole reason why the spindle subjects had been the components of Prototype C, which would later become the mutated Sioux virus. He had caused so much damage, and yet somehow, I wanted to save him. Jasper, who saved me. I'd cut through the thing controlling him, and there was a chance that I hadn't lost him. Part of me, or at least splintered pieces which are still human, still hanging on, was overjoyed that the thing was out of his head, while the rest of me wanted nothing more than to grab squirming tendrils wriggling on the ground near Jasper's body and plunge them back into his head, and then into mine, so I could share his despair, sorrow eating him up, so I could see what had twisted his mind and sent him hurtling off of the edge. I can pinpoint a moment when that side of me won, when I chose to fall rather than force myself to the surface, overcoming the shadows bleeding into me. Instead of fighting back, I fell. I gave in to the virus taking me over, and it felt good. It felt like coming up for air and then being pulled back into icy depths, which I knew would swallow me up. I'd already scarred my face with my nails. I'd already torn out my hair and smashed my head against the marble floor until my vision was blurry, my thoughts dancing in brain fog. Laughing. I was laughing, giggling, sticking my finger down my throat and bringing up everything I'd eaten until it was only my hands and knees over Jasper's body, gasping for breath and grinning into darkness swallowing me. Throughout this last year, I've never felt true sorrow, true hopelessness than I did at that moment, when I killed Alexa Blake, when I ripped her apart and forced her right at the edge, to give up on faith and plunge a blade through her heart. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it when I murdered my mother, smashing her in the head over and over again with a rock. No. In a way, Mycroft was right. There was something wrong with me at that point. Rory was normal, or at least in his eyes, but not me. I wouldn't give in to the dark no matter what he did, until he had to plunge his filthy fingers into my skull and do it himself, forcing me to watch Luna die. Right then, though, with the school crumbling around me, the ground rumbling with the footsteps of the dead and the undead, I finally let the shadows and the dark consume me. And it was so beautiful. So fucking beautiful. With my best friend writhing on my knee, his heartbeat slowing when I pressed my ear against his chest, his flesh wriggling with something inhuman, something wrong, something setting off alarm bells in my head, screaming at me to run. But why would I? Why would I run away from pure, unbridled pain? The pain of losing someone I had only just started to know for what must have been the 1,000th time, who I had lost multiple times through my childhood, losing and finding and then losing him again. Why wouldn't I soak in the agony of him slipping away from me yet again? That is all I remember. Pain and pleasure together. An intoxicating cocktail inside my head. I remember thinking, and then not thinking, and then wondering, and thinking some more. When you give in to the monster inside your head as well as your own personal demons, memories threatening to throw you deeper and deeper and deeper into the dark, you lose control of time, of the now. The date and the time and the when and the how, and the who and the what. It all became nothing, fading into singularity, which only existed in my head as an anchor, keeping me hanging on. Slipping, but hanging on. I remember reveling in the pain, the agony watching Jasper twitch and squirm, his eyes flickering, as everything which made him Jasper was rewritten inside him. I can't describe what it felt like. How can I describe a feeling only I know? How do I describe despondence in its purest form? It was wonderful, beautiful, striking pain stinging me, slicing through me and cutting me apart. I had waited so long to fall, and I never really had, because I still believed, at least some part of me believed that there was a chance I could stay human. I knew there was someone on the outside willing to help us, to get us out. I refused to fall, even before the virus took hold. Not when I saw what I did to my mother, what Jasper had done to Luna. The experiments, the creation behind the Sioux virus. I never let myself plunge until I realized I had lost him. Not for the first time, or the second. I had lost and found Jasper throughout my life, choking on blanks which took him away. Yet this one felt like it was real, like it was cemented, like it was final. Jasper Mycroft was dead. The thing inside him was waking up. I remembered pulling his writhing body towards mine and waiting for him to come apart, unraveling in my arms. The Sioux virus final form taking shape. That's what 100% was after all. I'd already seen it in Connor, or at least the beginning stages of it. Luna had been very clever with her analogies. The very hungry caterpillar, I thought dizzily, as the cocoon-like substance began to break apart across his flesh, making way for flawless skin which lied. How could I call it skin when it was moving, writhing? I could see them, tiny bumps wriggling under his flesh, ready to burst out. His eyes were back, but not really his anymore. They looked human, like they always had. Brown like coffee grounds. I never really noticed that, but I did then. They were a shade of brown I'd never really noticed. Or maybe I had. Maybe I had always noticed his eye color in those 1,998 realities I'd lost. I wouldn't lie to myself and say they still looked human, though. Maybe that was just another way to push me further, giving me pieces of him which had been real, but ultimately, he wasn't. Jasper was just another host for the thing inside him. I leaned close to him, pulling his motionless body to my chest and listening to his heartbeat which had quickened. When I ran my fingers down his arms, it was warm. His breath tickled my cheeks, and it almost seemed like when he'd opened his eyes, he would spit out something sarcastic with a sardonic smile or push me away with a scowl. Hope. There it was again. Hope that he would actually come back to me, and faith that he would be the boy who had saved me in the first place. That was a load of bullshit. Even consumed in my own pain, my own twisted agony, I knew I wouldn't give myself the satisfaction of hope, only to have it snatched from me. It was tempting, sure. I wanted to bask in that feeling for eternity, losing him and then finding him, then hoping he would come and then, nope. And I would slip away. I would mutilate myself to match him and we would plunge together. Miss Delaney. Its static voice was back. The outside world was crying out into my head. Pressing my hands over my ears, I squeezed my eyes shut. Go away! I hissed through my teeth. Still, though, the voice persisted. Mara Delaney, we have attempted to contact you on numerous occasions and we are running out of time. If you do not respond by 1500 hours, we will be forced to accept that there are no survivors inside Blackwood Academy. And we will begin a controlled explosion, which will effectively wipe out. Go away, I continued, in a sing-song voice. I sang until I bit my tongue, and liking the feeling of it, reveling in the taste of the rusty change filling my mouth. I bit down again and again and again, until I was spitting mouthfuls out and letting it dribble down my chin, even swallowing it. It tasted good. I could make it taste like anything I wanted to if I set my mind to it. It was hot chocolate with whipped cream, or a milkshake on a hot summer day. It was a refreshing Coke, or a lemonade, or an iced tea. My thoughts were splintering. They weren't really mine anymore. That's why they were so hectic. Why I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop thinking about things that did matter, and things that didn't, and things that were supposed to matter but didn't end up mattering. So many voices and bodies and thoughts slipped into me and I could barely tell which one was mine. Their past and their presence and future slamming into me. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop them coming through, like footsteps in melting snow. I heard all of their thoughts, all of their worries and hopes and dreams before the virus took them. Suddenly, I had thousands of parents, siblings, and pets. I wanted to graduate and go to my mom's beach house in New York, London, Australia, Italy. I wanted to go to community college and join a gang, and not even graduate at all. Fuck school. Fuck life. No, life was beautiful. Life had meaning. There was a God looking down on me and looking after me. No, God doesn't exist. God never existed. If there was a God, why would he make me this way? Why am I so ugly? Why would he take my family and leave me with my little sister I can barely look after? I'm rich and it sucks. I want to show Daddy my new boyfriend, but he'll hate him. I can't stand living here anymore. Why does she drink? Why does he drink? Why can't they accept me for who I am? It's not fair that I was born into this body. I hate this body. I hate these feelings. Why am I like this? Why can't I pass by out? Why won't Dad talk to me? It's so hard to keep going. Keep smiling, keep pretending I'm okay. The voices began to pick up, riddling with static. They started to cry, scream. I want my mom. I don't want to die. Oh God, what is she doing? What's happening? Did he just do that? Why is he attacking her? I'm going to die. In school? Am I really going to fucking die at school? All of this, becoming a valedictorian and working my ass off to what? Bleed out of here? Huh? Mommy, I'm sorry I shouted at you this morning. I need you to know that. They're going to kill me. These psychopaths are going to fucking rip me apart. Stop, I wanted to say, but the words was choked in my throat, like a radio exploding in my skull. They continued in a drawl, an endless stream of cries and screeches rattling my head. Did I want them to stop? Or did I want to continue indulging in their last thoughts? All that pain, and agony, and despair. I focused on Jasper. How did that book go again? Maybe I could read to him. The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Luna's voice from earlier returned, and I followed along, reading in a low voice. In the light of the moon, we said together. A little egg lay on a leaf. She paused, and I said those words too. I repeated everything she had said. Are you listening, Murra? Because this is a good book. You used to read it all the time when you were little. It was one of your favorites. I laughed at that. Yeah, I thought. One of my favorites. Maybe I beat my sweet marmalade to death with that one too. I stopped laughing when Jasper's body jolted again, this time rising into an arch, before slamming back down. His chest rose up and down, and I wondered, just for a moment, if he was actually fighting it. Luna's voice continued, smooth like syrup, intoxicating and mesmerizing. One warm Sunday morning, the sun came up, and pop! Out of the egg came a tiny and very hungry caterpillar. The swarm of voices collapsed into white noise, morphing into one voice I did recognize. It was louder than the others, a piercing screech taken over. With it came the feeling of losing, a pain, an agony, and regret, filling me like it had consumed him. Instead of pushing it away like the others, I let it slip into me. I let its voice ignite my mind, its cries growing louder and louder and louder, on a constant loop. Never forgive me. No, never, never, never forgive me. Never forgive me. Never forgive me. Jasper. His body was still convulsing in my arms, the updates still converting him. I had to understand that he was dead. Jasper Mycroft was dead. But not his memories, not his thoughts concaving inside me like everything else. Right then, there was nothing more I wanted to do than indulge myself in him. Not anyone else, not Alexa Blake, who I could hear as clear as day. Her cries for her mom, for me to stop, begging and begging and begging for me to kill her. Not even Connor's, whose last thoughts was confusion, followed by a deep, dark hole in his head, an overwhelming urge to die. I didn't want any of them. Only Jasper, who had started this. Only Jasper, who could have stopped this. The memories that sent him over the edge. I wanted to drench myself in them again. Jasper, or at least the Jasper I knew, was dead, but not his memories. As if granting my wish like some fucked up Aladdin, I found myself disconnected from my own mind, from the hundreds and thousands of thoughts choking me. It was like lucid dreaming, but this time it was real. Instead of flying over the towering buildings of New York like I had as a kid, however, I was inside an expanse of white, which seemed to go on forever, stretching into oblivion. A foggy space teetering between reality and dream. A voice surrounded me, bouncing from walls I couldn't see, or maybe didn't even exist. His voice, his past and present, colliding in one space. Jasper's mind. All I had to do was follow the one voice which brought me here. The last words I'd heard come out of his mouth before Rory took him. It was like walking on air, throwing myself through the makings of his mind, what made him tick. As I got further towards the voice, blinding white made way for darkness. I saw it. Pieces of the virus which had taken hold. Putrid slime dripping from the walls and pooling on the ground. Curling vines and tendrils hanging from a ceiling which used to be white, now resembling Blackwood Academy's always. I was back inside the white room where I found Connor, the secret laboratory underneath Harvey Mycroft's house, where he had turned the town's children into monsters right under their parents' noses. This time I was seeing through Jasper's perspective. He was paralyzed, his breath heavy, his stomach dancing, mind roaring. The foggy feeling of the needle which had pierced his skin hours before, the sedative still clouding his brain, was making the world spin around in circles he couldn't keep up with. I felt the sickly twist of nausea in his gut, and the scream clawing in his throat. I saw Connor strapped to the bed, laughing like a hyena, swaying side to side, glazed over eyes flicking to the crumpled body of his father, still on the ground. And the screen where Luna's murder had been broadcasted, twisted into the catalyst for the beginning of the Sioux virus, was still on. The walls painted in red, which didn't seem real to him. Everything was red. The floor underneath Jasper was red. The walls, Connor's face, Luna's body lying at his feet. Jasper's father was behind him, talking to someone else, but their voices meant nothing to him. Rory and my younger self were in front of him, the two of us holding hands and dancing around Luna's corpse, our bare feet slick with the red pooling on pristine white marble. Jasper's gaze went to his father, and then Connor, and finally to me. I felt his hesitation before he was striding towards me and grabbed my arm, yanking me away from a grinning Rory. Continued dancing without me. Twirling around, Connor joined in, eliciting her erratic dance. Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all fall down. Mara? He squeezed my wrist tight, and I only regarded him with a wide smile. I cocked my head, my eyes penetrating right through him, staring into oblivion. Do you forgive me? Jasper choked out the words. Then something warm was splashing down his cheeks, and he was gritting his teeth and tightening his hold. Guilt. It was killing him, more than hopelessness ever could. You forgive me, right? It wasn't me. It wasn't me, Mara. It made me do this to you. It wasn't me, I swear. He broke down and my expression didn't falter, my smile only widening. That boiled his blood. Jasper grabbed my shoulders and shook me just like when we were kids. Snap out of it! Snap out of it! He whispered, tripping over his words. We're going to get away from here, just like Luna said. Jasper sniffled. All of us. He met my eye. And you'll forgive me, right? I'll kill my dad. I promise you. I'll kill the bastard and we'll get the fuck out of here and never come back. They won't hurt you. They won't hurt Connor or Joey or Rory. Any of you guys again. I won't let him. It was so hard for him to say those words, because part of him knew he was just holding on to a fantasy which wasn't going to happen. The truth was that he knew he was a prisoner of his father. We all were. Still, he held his breath and squeezed me tighter until his fingernails pierced the flesh of my arms. I didn't react, and if I did, I was still smiling, enjoying the stinging sensation cutting into my skin. I promise you. I promise all of you. You'll forgive me, he thought, the words tangling on his tongue. You'll forgive me, right? You'll forgive me? I shook my head, giggling. Why would I forgive you? I turned to him, and my eyes were glistening with tears. A cry tearing at my lips had been mechanically twisted into a Cheshire smile. I'll never forgive you for making me feel like this. Like the world is crumbling under my feet. Like I'm falling down a hole and there's no light, no air to breathe, only pain. Just like your dad said, I'm going to be his favorite. I laughed, poking him in the chest. And you're going to be his rat. Something shattered inside him, and Jasper turned away from me and kept walking until he was at the door. His trembling hands were on the handle, something slimy and rotten climbing up his throat. I need to get out of here, was all he could think. I need to get out of here. Oh God, I need to get out. I'll never forgive you, I continued. I didn't move from my spot, my eyes piercing his. I was crying, phantom tears I'd shed when screaming for Luna to be saved, before I was forced to submit to the video. I laughed louder. And to Jasper, it was like gunshots until he was screaming too, until he was slamming his fists into the door. Let me out, he cried. Let me out. He kept going, his hits bouncing impenetrable metal. Get me out of here. I want to see Mom. Do you hear me? Jasper. Mycroft turned from his conversation, his expression twisting from relief to annoyance. I want to see Mom. He wailed like a child, and acting just like one. Childlike thoughts came to the surface. Let me see Mom. You did something to her. I want to see her. I just want my mom. For goodness sake, Mycroft hissed out. Will someone please get a hold of my son? When Mycroft's men managed to apprehend him, Jasper's thoughts were indistinguishable as he kicked and screamed, struggling in their grip. He started to laugh, bridging on hysteria. Never forgive me! He slammed his head into the floor when his father's arms were around him, and Jasper was sobbing, choking on gibberish. His father's voice barely registered as he continued, trying to hurt himself so he wouldn't have to deal with the guilt of what he had done, the pain and anger and regret. That was it, I thought. The realization snapped me out of it, at least enough to stop indulging in writhing pain, tearing him apart. I pulled back, away from the memory, because it was private. It was his. But when I tried to take a step back, when I tried to retract myself from Jasper's mind, whatever had me wouldn't let go. It was inside the memory erased from his mind by Mycroft, the one which had sent him mad. He couldn't be controlled by the video, so she had done it herself, manually digging inside him. Something that would remind him of what he had done, that he wasn't human, that he didn't deserve to be saved from the dark, and his only choice was to give in to her influence and let it consume him. His words from earlier played in my mind. You know the best part of falling, Mara? Losing yourself? Plunging into the dark? His smile had pricked. Remembering. That's what he had remembered. What he was being forced to remember. Over and over and over again. Never forgive me. His voice grew louder and louder in my head, eclipsing all other thoughts, including my own. No, never forgive me. Never forgive me. Never forgive me. Never forgive me. Get out of my head. His voice echoed suddenly, writhing with static. The other voices, the thoughts of my dead classmates, stopped. The thundering footsteps, which had been getting closer and closer, stopped. I was yanked from the memory when something wound around my neck, round and around until I was choking, gasping for breath. I opened my eyes, only to find myself hovering a foot off the ground. Vines snaked around my body. I felt them tickling the back of my head, eager to delve inside my brain once more. For once, they weren't my attackers. That's rude, you know? You can't just go crawling around in someone's head like that. huge invasion of privacy. You've somehow stopped the update. Come on, Mara. That's not how the game goes. You gotta play fair. His voice was back, but not in my head this time. This time it was real. Jasper was standing, swaying slightly, his empty eyes burning into me. From the look of him, half-converted eyes which looked both human and not, perfect skin glistening with that same slime covering the walls, strings of the same substance from Connor's ears, leaking from his nose. I realized he wasn't finished. Whatever the update had done to him had stopped. The writhing under his flesh had stopped. Whatever had been ready to burst out of him was gone, at least for the moment. And more so, it wasn't the virus which had me by the throat, its tendrils and vines sucking the breath from my lungs. No, it was Jasper's hands. When he tightened his grip, putting just enough pressure to elicit a scream from my throat, I bit back. The sensation was like nothing I'd felt before, and I craved more. I wanted him to squeeze until my vision was spotting, each breath desperate and painful. My hands instinctively came up to defend myself, only for me to remember that choking would be good for me. Losing all my breath would only fill me with euphoria. I wanted that. Still though, my body fought, despite my foggy mind collapsing into acceptance. Why did you stop it, huh? When he slammed me into the wall, my nerve endings exploded, and pain encompassed my being, bleeding into every part of me. I opened my mouth to speak. What I'd say I had no idea, but I was running out of time. My vision was blurring, and no matter how good it felt, how much I wanted to prolong the pain, my body was still going into fight or flight. My body still wanted to live. When I was sure he was going to end it, or at least give me the luxury of holding on to my last shuddering breaths as my brain shut down, his grip slipped, and we both hit the ground. I didn't have time to catch my breath before he was crawling up to me and getting close. So close, his breath was tickling my face. Seriously, we were so close. I didn't reply. Jasper's eyes searched mine before his lips stretched into a grin. Oh, that's it. You wanted to save me. Behind him, the virus acted like a bubble, like it was protecting him. Twisted vines snaking around his arms and head. Jasper let them, paying them no mind. Instead, his gaze was on me. I mean, sure. Why not? He chuckled, stabbing his index finger into his left temple. I glimpsed the same maniacal energy I'd seen in Joey's eyes glistening in his, that same elation vibrating his body. You kill the thing inside my head and bring me back. Sounds easy, right? I winced when he flicked me in the forehead. But what you don't seem to understand, or who knows, maybe you're in denial? Maybe you don't want to believe the inevitable. Looking at him, then, was so hard to tell which Jasper I was talking to. He was right. I was in denial. I was trying to find his humanity. Reaching out for my hand, he entangled his fingers with mine. They still felt human. They still felt like the hands I'd known my whole life, if not a little slimy and wet. That was the worst part. I still dared to hope that he was still in there. Jasper reached for a tiny vine which was still sticking from his head, one which had held on. Pull it out of my head. I found my voice, leaning back. What? He laughed. You heard me. Pull it out. When I didn't move, he sighed and wrapped his fingers around the squirming thing, gave a violent tug and plucked it out, dangling it in front of my eyes. See? No change. You thought getting this bastard out of my head would work. That's cute. Honestly. Jasper jumped to his feet. I mean, yeah, it happens in the movies, sure. You kill the thing that's taken over the mind and presto, you've saved your poor friend. When he held out a hand for me, I found myself taking it. Jasper pulled me to my feet. There was something wrong with his voice. It was riddled with static like Joey's. There was something else. This time the virus was speaking through him, just like it had with Rory, and then Luna. Now he was its flesh puppet. I didn't know how I'd stopped his update. If this was him half finished, I didn't want to see 100%. Surely you know by now. That's not how it works. I told you, didn't I? Viruses evolve. I mean, I spent like 2 years of my sad life playing and replaying Plague Inc. Virus Learn to Adapt. Jasper's lip curled. The real damage, like I've told you, maybe 100 times now, was plunging me into the dark through my lost memories. No matter what you do, whether you pull these out or not, I won't change. My, let's call it awakening. Or can we go with a word which starts with a B and rhymes with brainwashing? He chuckled when I didn't react. Tough crowd. I'm pretty sure you laughed at all Rory's jokes. Anyway, I was different to the others, and you know that. I first row out a first row seat. While your minds were twisted with a video, mine was purged with brute force. Like my dad said about Connor, there's a 15-car pileup on my synapses highway, and there's no saving who I used to be. His words came fast, sending chills down my spine. Jasper leaned back with a sigh. There's no saving you either, you know? I mean, think about it. You killed your own mother, your friends are dead, and your only hope of getting out of here lie in the bastards who turned you into a human lab rat in the first place. You can let go, you know? You should be proud of yourself. You are a successful subject in my dad's eyes. A normal human girl twisted into a monster, into someone who craves pain and hopelessness. Sure, he said I would bring you back to yourself, but who wants that? That's so boring. I mean, come on, why go back? Isn't this so much more fun? His words echoed his father's from my splintered memories. When he was human, Jasper hadn't exactly given me a Q&A on viruses, but I did know that the thing would do anything to spread, anything to infect others. The Sioux virus had found it in manipulating me, using what was left of Jasper as a meat puppet. The boy's eyes shone with that inhuman gleam. Help us spread this. A miracle for the human race, a new life, a new world where pain and agony are what every human craves. A better world. Why should half of the population suffer in poverty while the other revels in greed? Wouldn't it be better if we all suffered? Our own personal playground? And we can play, like when we were kids. Jasper bowed and held out his hand. We just need a queen. I stepped back. Rory, what happened to her? Jasper made a face and I caught that same mechanical gleam in his eyes. Why don't I show you? He gestured for me to follow, and I did. He took me back to the IT room, where everything started. It looked the same, except this time, 2 thrones had been constructed from twisted vines and what was left of the kids who died. One for king, and one for a queen. I wasn't looking at the thrones, though. I was looking at what was left of Rory on the ground. An explosion of red painting, squirming, writhing bugs, struggling to stay alive. They clung to her flesh and swarmed over her like she was their saving grace. Knelt in front of Rory were the rest of the spindle subjects, cupping her blood in their hands and painting themselves, tearing her flesh from bones and pressing it to their own. Joey's fingers were inside her skull, pulling apart her brain matter and stuffing it inside his mouth like he hadn't eaten in days, like him and Connor growing more and more hysterical as they tore at Rory's corpse, ripping her limb from limb. Jasper came up behind me and lay a hand on my shoulder. I swallowed a scream, but it wasn't a scream of pain. It was delight. Twisted pain and anguish contorting my lips into a grin I couldn't control. Rory. I took steps towards her, slowly. Oh, God. Rory. Don't mind them, Jasper said. They're mourning their queen who never was, covering themselves with her pain, reattaching her limbs to their body so they can wallow in what she gifted all of us. The boy sighed. Her mind is what started all of this, what Harvey Mycroft did to her, twisting and twisting and twisting her into a monster. Stepping stones to my foundation, his most prized creation. When my gaze found Connor and really registered on him, I started forwards. Jasper pulled me back. Easy, Tiger. What did you do to him? Do you like him? See? He's good as new. I wouldn't call Connor good as new, but Jasper, or Virus, was right. He looked like himself again, even if that meant he was exactly like Joey. We remodeled your friend in our eyes, but hey, it's still Connor Marlowe. Jasper chuckled. Obviously, if you look past certain readjustments we've had to make. He's not like you? Oh no. Connor is a foot soldier. He was one of us originally, so he won't be leaving our circle. The update has turned him into a beacon of sorts. A beacon to spread us far and wide. Blackwood was just the start. Jasper nudged me. Why would we stay here when there's a whole world out there? What he was saying wasn't making sense to me. Or maybe it was, and I couldn't concentrate on it. Because all I could see was Connor. All I could see was Jasper's body being paraded in front of me. Jasper raised a brow. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me to the Queen's throne. I don't know what you're talking about. Sometimes I wonder if you pretend to be stupid. That's who you want to be, right? The protagonist? The final girl? The perfect virgin who hasn't done anything wrong and silently judges her broken friends. He laughed. But that's not you, Mara. You have your memories. You've killed multiple kids, murdered your mother in cold blood, and watched your best friend get her fucking guts ripped out like spaghetti. He gestured for me to sit on the throne, and I did. Maybe it was the virus's influence on my mind, or I'd given up. Maybe I wanted to believe I was really talking to Jasper. So stupidly naive. In front of me were the other spindle subjects who turned from Rory's body, their glowing eyes on me. I sensed Jasper go behind me, and I felt his fingers trace the back of my skull, slipping to my neck. His breath grazed my ear. You can't hide behind that facade anymore, so why not come out? Drop the self-righteous act. He was right, I thought dizzily. All this time I thought I was human, that I was the one that deserved to live. The freaks could be killed, the spindle subjects were too far gone. And when that thought crossed my mind, the first tendril entered my head, followed by a second and a third. I felt each one in clarity. I felt them penetrate blood and muscle and bone, squirming inside of me and taking my brain into a vice grip. Like everything else, though, pain struck and I closed my eyes and fought back the urge to collapse into it, to bathe inside my own agony, wrenching my body from side to side. Jasper's voice continued. Since the start, we've been connected by our pain, and it's been perfect. All a coming together in harmony and delectating in our own hopelessness, despair in its purest form. But I don't think that's enough. He paused. I started this before, but I was rudely interrupted by a certain someone. I think we should share all of it. Our thoughts, our feelings, our memories, all of it. So we can indulge in more and more and more. The others murmured in agreement. Well, I could sense Jasper smile. Mara, do you want to do the honors? As he spoke, I was back in front of my mom. The bloody rock was in my hand, and her lips were forming the word stop. But I didn't stop. I kept going until she was a twitching mass of scarlet at my feet. Your tipping points. Jasper's voice collapsed into Luna's. Your poor mom. She begged you, Mora. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. Oh, and Luna. Such a sweet girl. The scenery flashed once again. I could sense the virus in my head, delving deeper and deeper, forcing me to see what had pushed me over the edge. I was in the white room. Luna was pressed up against the wall, her eyes feral and frightened and pained. Her cry rattled in my ears when Jasper plunged a knife into her again and again, making her suffer, leaving her to choke back breaths and force air through her lips. But what if it didn't have to be like this? Luna's voice hummed. I can put you at peace, you know? I can take you away from all of this. And you won't have to think about who you've lost, who's never going to come back. Her sigh filled my skull. What if I gave you what you wanted? What did I really want? I thought. Peace? Or did I want to plunge further into the pain? The virus was burying itself further and further inside me, finding memories pushed far back, ones I didn't even know existed. The white room bled into our local diner. I was 13 years old, and it was the last day of summer. Rory was still relatively normal despite being groomed to be a psychopath. It was the first time we'd officially penned ourselves the Jasper and Rory Defense Squad, just in case Mycroft took her away. Connor and Joey were arguing over something trivial, their heads just a little too close. Rory, leaning against the window with her brow raised watching the whole show. Luna, her arms around me, and across the table, Jasper, looking tired and worn out, dunking his fries in a shake with his chin resting on his fist. I caught his awkward glances, too fast for me to register, but I was too busy staring at Connor, at his new haircut, the beanie that was a little too big, sitting over thick strands of dark hair. He'd looked good. Connor had been through an unexpected growth spurt, and I was completely smitten. Jasper caught my eye, I could tell by his smile that he knew, and I was making it pretty obvious. He mouthed something, and whatever it was made me laugh, enough for Luna to nudge me. A singular moment you can live inside forever. Luna's voice murmured in my head. One of your most precious memories you kept hidden. How about that, huh? Memories are wonderful things, are they not? The ability to capture one moment and keep it with you for the rest of your life. Why not stay there, Mara? You don't have to think about all the bad things when you can all be here, like your own personal fairy tale.